Welcome to TVLinux. I'm Shaun Savage, your host, and I'm here with Jesse Black. Hey,
Hi.
Jesse, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Shaun. How are you?
I hear we've got a pretty good show today for us.
That's what I hear too. So stick around. We'll get right into it in just a minute.
We've got some pretty interesting things. We're going to be talking about desktop distribution,
Desktops, window managers, and distributions.
These are all the things that differentiate either Windows or Macintosh. And we've got things, each one has a little different look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, each one acts a little differently. Well, we're going to show you some that covers all of them, right?
Right. We're going to be covering the gamut, so to speak.
Yes. Okay, and I guess we're going to now start off with the nerd news. Okay, the first one that we have is no email privacy rights under the Constitution, the U.S. government claims. What they're doing is they're basically saying that they can sniff every single header and email you write because it's not covered under the Constitution. So privacy is not important. It's that they get to, they say that there is not an expectation of privacy when you write email. And
that's news to me, Shaun. I certainly expect privacy when I'm communicating with other individuals.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that most mail emblems have an emblem of a mail envelope. It's either sealed or unsealed, and when you click on it, sometimes it opens and then you could read your. So by definition, most people have an expectation of privacy by the way the icons work.
It should be handled the same way paper mail is.
Yes,
You seal
yes.
the envelope and no one's supposed to look in there.
That's what I think. So, the next one is a great story. Mass production finally kicks off on the one laptop per child. The mass production place is in China, in the Changshu, which is about 2 hours northwest of Shanghai. They're starting to produce it, and one of the things that you can do is if you do want to get one of these things, you can buy them now. And
these are the laptops that they are hoping to get under $100, but are now under $200.
right.
And they're durable, so that they can be used by children in the less developed world.
There's no hard disk, but there's flash. So it uses flash, so you buy an SD card and you store all your data on it.
That's great. That makes it more durable and faster.
Yes, yes. You could drop it, when it's turned off, you could probably put it in water, pull it out, dry it off, and it will still run because there's really no moving parts. And along with that, what we have is buy one laptop and you basically buy two laptops, you get one and a child gets one. So, it's a little, so basically you're paying $400 for a laptop, which isn't too bad for a laptop, low end.
Well, my opinion is in this country, a lot of us would be buying them just for the novelty anyway. So this way we can do some good with our the money that we have and share computing technology with someone who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it.
I think and it runs Linux, so yeah, go for it. Okay. The next thing here is I just bought this board. It's a $60 board, and what it is, it's a you can buy it with GOS, which is a Linux distribution off of Ubuntu. So for $60 for the motherboard, $30 for the RAM, and then $50 for the hard drive, you now have a computer. You know, you could then get a power supply for about, box for about 20 bucks. So you now have a full-blown computer, minus any monitor, but that's a good price for under $150. So I'm going to be playing with it, and I'll tell you how it works. Along with that, and here it is. This is the Everex TC2502 GPC. It is the first mass market $200 desktop computer. And I just bought the motherboard for it for $60. Here you can buy the whole thing at Walmart for $200. So that's not a bad thing. But here is the Walmart, and $199, it's out of stock. Imagine that. So right now it's out of stock, but you can go out and buy a computer for $200 now. I mean, that's a real good price. And here's a bunch of ratings. Overall rating 5-star, overall rating 5-star, overall rating 4-star, overall rating 5-star, overall rating 5-star.
Shaun, I've read some of the ratings and reviews of the machine. It has a low power processor. I heard it runs under 20 watts. And so if people are expecting a high-end machine, they'll be disappointed. If they're looking for a low-power, low-priced machine, they'll be very pleased with what they get out of that $200 PC.
Yeah, this is not a high-end machine for 200 bucks.
We'll comment more on this during the Mozilla Minute.
So anyway, that's some neat stuff that we've found. Well, here's something interesting. Over the next 48 hours, the Secretary of State in all 50 states will receive subpoenas from the National Clean Election lawsuit. And basically what they're doing is that if there has to be a paper trail on all voting machines, and if they're not, they're subject to legal action according to these people, which is good. They're trying to basically return the voting system to be trustworthy again.
Right. We have to know and be able to audit what those machines are doing, because right now the code in them is closed source. We don't know what it's doing. We don't know if it's generating correct results. So we have to have accountability and verification in the voting process for people to have confidence in it.
Right. And a lot of the Diebold voting machines are something like hacked in 30 seconds. So, you unscrew one thing, move it, pull it out. There's a lock on one side, but if you unscrew the other thing, it just comes out. It's one of those poorly engineered from the security standpoint. So we all believe in good voting, so that's a good start of it. This next one, how many times have you gotten mad at the cable company? Well, here it is. The Federal Communications Commission is proposing a new rule that they would have to slash prices on smaller television programmers that want to lease spare cable channels. So what this means is that shows like this, and if someone wanted to put on a show commercially, it wouldn't cost as much as it has. So I would be able to, if TVLinux had enough funding, we'd be able to lease a channel from the cable companies.
The Linux channel.
The
I like
Linux,
it.
the TVLinux channel. Yeah. So that would be pretty fun.
We would be coming to you from the TVLinux network.
Well, that is all the nerd news I have today. And I guess it is time for the Mozilla Minute. And, okay.
And here it is.
Here it is.
Shaun, you mentioned the under $200 PC, right?
Right.
And you mentioned that it runs a derivative of Ubuntu.
Correct.
Did you mention the operating system is called GOS?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pop my screen onto the video, and we'll see the website for GOS. We see a nice picture of what the desktop looks like there in the lower right. And the G kind of reminds us of the word, well, what comes to mind with the letter G these days, Shaun?
GNU.
GNU. How about
Green.
Green and Google, right?
Google.
Okay. Let's just click on it to read about a little bit more about it. The company that is making the GOS is really big on Google. And they recommend using the Google applications, Gmail, Gtalk, Calendar, Maps, Docs, and Spreadsheets, and more. Basically, to use the Google desktop applications as your desktop. And so it just seems to be quite a coincidence, I guess, that they named their operating system to start with the letter G.
Yes.
So how does this tie into the Mozilla Minute, you ask, right? Go ahead, ask.
How does this tie into the Mozilla Minute?
Well, what better way to access the Google desktop than with a Mozilla browser like Firefox?
And I'm sure that under Firefox, you do have, you can download, and as an extension to Firefox, install the Google toolbar.
That's right. And so really the browser is becoming the platform that all the rest of your applications can run on. So basically all you need is a simple computer that runs the browser, and you can get access to all the applications you need on the web. So the browser is your new operating system platform.
Desktop, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have some software that I've been working on that is exactly that. I've written some software for Firefox that will act just like Access. So you can design forms and pages and everything like that using SQL, and it runs within the Firefox browser.
It's great that Firefox is so extensible.
Yes, it is. I think it's great. Okay, we need to we're going to show some show times. Our show is produced, tonight it's live, but on 4 other times during the week, it's recorded. Welcome back. We're now going to start the main program. We're going to be talking about distribution, desktop environments, and Windows managers. And Jesse's going to start off and telling us exactly what we need to know.
Okay. On this show, we continually talk about Linux distributions, and I guess intuitively we all have an idea of what that means. A distribution is something that we download off the web, and we burn to a CD, and we boot it up. Maybe it's a live CD. We boot it up on our computer, and we test it out. We like it, and we install it on our hard drives. But I'm just going to delve a little bit into what actually makes up a Linux distribution. And since distribution is a word that I have trouble with sometimes, it's kind of long and twisty, I'm going to call it a distro, like many of the other people in the Linux community do. So I'm going to be talking about Linux distros. A Linux distro is a complete Linux operating system and environment delivered to you. Linux is a term we use quite often. It's actually, Linux is only part of a Linux distribution. It's the nucleus or kernel that handles the very basic operations like talking to devices, handling events like, say, inserting a USB device, etc. And layered on top of the Linux kernel are lots of other layers of software. I have a diagram here on my screen which will show up in the, there it is, and I'll bring it up a little bit. Down here at the bottom of the diagram we see that hardware, that's the part that you provide, and then a distribution provides everything else on top of there. It gives you the Linux kernel, which is, I say,
it's the resource manager of the system. It basically controls it's the manager of everything on the system.
Right, and its purpose is to talk to the hardware and talk back to the other layers above it.
And prevent people from doing bad things or stupid things, and
right.
You know, it's the heart of the system.
Right, and on top of the Linux kernel, there are the GNU libraries and utilities. This is free software originated by Richard Stallman, who believed that computing power should be available to everyone who needs it. And Linus Torvalds came along and developed the Linux kernel, and together they are technically known as GNU Linux. So although we talk about Linux for shorthand, we're actually talking about these two layers and more.
GNU Linux. Now, what does GNU stand for?
GNU, I believe means GNU's not Unix.
Right, GNU is not Unix.
So that one company who claimed that Linux was Unix, they were wrong, basically.
Right. And it's if you take a look at GNU and look at GNU, and then it's not Linux. So it's recursively.
Okay.
You got to be a computer guy to talk about
to
that.
Appreciate that, right? Okay, on top of the GNU libraries and utilities, we like to work in a graphical environment. So they've built a graphical environment on top of those, and it's called X11. And right now, the latest versions of that are produced by a company called, or rather a group called X.org. And it's their job to give us a nice GUI on Linux and Unix. And on top of that is a GUI toolkit. And on top of that are graphics applications and GUI type applications and a desktop. And there's one more thing you see in the diagram off to the left, and that's labeled WM. It's the window manager, and it also controls what's going on in the X11 layer.
And the interesting thing is, X11 was first designed as a client server. So what happened is the initial machines were very, very dumb, but the screens were very big because they wanted very good resolution. So there was a network sending commands on what should be drawn on the screen. So you have this powerhouse mainframe telling what should be drawing on the clients or servers out there, and the display server. So what happened is, once it got to PCs, it's the server and client are running on the same machine. So it's a really interesting thing. In fact, in one of the later shows, I may get a hold of and run things from Jesse's machine on my, so it's running on Jesse's machine, but it's being displayed on mine.
That's right. That's an excellent idea for a future topic. And as you point out, the X11 system was designed from the start to be to work across a network. So whereas in the Windows world, they were just pleased to be able to get any Windows working at all, in the X world, it was already working from one machine to another. So you could have Windows on your screen from several other computers, even supercomputers like Craze, and you could be controlling them from your little desktop X terminal.
Right, and sometimes you can even have 4 or 5 machines that you're looking at on your desktop, and they're somewhere around the world.
Right. Okay, so when you, as I say, a Linux distribution is basically everything except the hardware, and often delivered to you on a CD or DVD, or you can download the image and burn it yourself. Now, when you put that all together, that's the Linux distribution, and it may sound easy the way I've just described it, but there's a lot of work involved in getting a Linux distribution to do what users want it to do and to make it work smoothly. So a lot of effort is put in by numerous development teams around the world coming out with different Linux distributions.
One of the things is to make things work together. You know, you have all the source to everything, but in order to get them all to work on the same machine, you have to compile all these sources for the same platform. And that takes a lot of effort to compile all the sources onto a single platform. Right.
Now there's we've shown many examples of distros and desktop environments on our show. One of the most popular for a long time now is Ubuntu, and it comes with the GNOME desktop environment. Shaun, I'm just going to put it on your screen here for a minute, and we can see an example of the GNOME desktop.
Okay, this is the GNOME desktop that I have on my machine, and you know, it looks about the same. One of the things that I have done on this was I added Compiz. And what this does is this gives it more of a Macintosh feel. So now if you watch my screen, you can see, you know, and if I shut it down, see how it sort of shoo, okay? So that's the type of thing that this is not a high-end machine, but the graphics for Linux can now do.
And as I understand it, Shaun, you don't need the 128 megabyte graphics card like you do for Vista to do things like that?
No, you know, I'm doing it on, you know, this is about 2 years old, so I'm doing it on this laptop, and
things just run better on a Linux system, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to point out on Shaun's screen that the menu of applications and other things are on the top of the screen. Windows users are used to seeing it at the bottom of the screen. Macintosh users are used to seeing it at the top. So those are differences in desktop environments. Now, we said that Ubuntu by default comes with
You mean you want it on the bottom like this?
Oh, you just dragged it down there, right?
No, it's down there. And what you do is you go up to Properties, say Bottom, Top, and it's back up to the top.
Can you do it on the left?
Sure. Left. There it is. Now, you can't...
Just off screen for our...
Just off screen.
Go ahead and mouse over it so something pops out there. Yeah, the menu's popping in from the left.
Or I can do it from the right. So
it's a very flexible user interface. So we said that Ubuntu comes with the GNOME desktop. It can also be repackaged to come with the KDE desktop, the other highly popular desktop environment for Linux systems. And when they package it with KDE, they call it Kubuntu instead of Ubuntu. So it's the same distribution, different desktop environments, so it's packaged differently, so they've given it a new name. And they can even replace GNOME and KDE with a lightweight window manager called with XFCE desktop, and then they call it Xubuntu. So they do all the work of getting the basic Ubuntu working, then they put different user interfaces on it, and they make it available as different distributions, so you can get the flavor you like.
The thing about Xubuntu or XFCE is that it is extremely lightweight. So if you have a very low-end computer, you know, we're talking a very old computer, you can install Xubuntu on it and
be working with a modern operating system on old hardware, as opposed to the Windows way, which is working with an
We have
old
a caller
operating
on the
system
line.
on new hardware.
Caller, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hello? I just switched to Firefox. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh. I just switched from Firefox to I had MSN, and I switched to Firefox, and it's giving me an error. And I'd just like to know if you feel there's a resemblance.
Say this again, you have an error in Firefox?
Yeah, and I'd also want to know if you feel there's a resemblance
Between resemblance with what?
between your pubes and the hair in your...
Okay,
Well,
I guess the caller is having problems with his Firefox, and he had an error, and he doesn't quite know what the error is. And until he's off the phone now.
The caller mentioned accessing MSN in the past. MSN, I don't know if that actually works in any browser other than Internet Explorer.
One of the things is if you put in the ActiveX plugin to Firefox on a Windows machine, it does work better than just plain Firefox.
Okay.
But that's because there's ActiveX, but that basically makes Firefox as insecure as IE, so I would not suggest doing it.
So the best workaround is to not try to access MSN
Right,
from
right.
any operating
Simple,
system,
simple,
from
simple.
any browser.
Right.
Okay, very good. So as we were saying, there are numerous different user interfaces that you can have on different distributions, and some of them do more than others, or they do things differently. For example, implementing things like drag and drop, or dropping icons onto the desktop, the applications that might be delivered that are running on the desktop, or even support for multiple desktops. These are all done slightly differently in the different desktop environments. Also, another difference is, for example, on some of the simpler desktops, if you plug in a USB device, you might not automatically get an icon on your desktop. Those are just some of the differences. Now, some of the other desktop environments besides KDE and GNOME, as you mentioned, are XFCE. Another one's called IceWM, which it has a Windows 95, 98 kind of a look to it.
There's Black Ice. In fact, there's probably close to 30 to 40 different window managers for Linux, all the way up from very simple ones to very, very complex ones.
Right, so you're not stuck with what the monopoly company wants you to use. You have your choice under Linux. In fact, I have a website here. I'll bring it up right now. Let me just start up Google. And I'm going to Google for compare Linux desktop environments. I'm going to search for that. And let's see. Here's a nice one from Wikipedia. They generally have lots of informative articles there. Let me find that one. Here's one. Comparison of X Windows System desktop environments. And they have a very nice explanation of what desktop environments are. And they have a comparison here. The chart across the top mentions GNOME, KDE, XFCE, Enlightenment, Black Box, and more. And then it kind of has a summary of what the objectives of the target audience, The size of the system, let's just look at that. KDE and GNOME tend to be around 200 megabytes to run a base system, whereas XFCE is less than a tenth of that at 15 megabytes. And Black Box is under a meg.
Is at 350K.
350K.
So that, and why would we want only 350K window manager?
Say we were trying to run on a very small system like
embedded devices.
Embedded devices, very old laptops.
Very old
example.
laptops.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why there is such a broad range for Linux, is because Linux runs on so many different platforms and is targeted for both the embedded and the supercomputer. You know,
Right.
it's running on Cray and it's running on cell phones. You know, so you've got quite a range of platforms there.
Mm-hmm. So in our diagram earlier, I was referring to window managers and that they control the graphical environment that's called X or X11. What I'm running here on this very old laptop is the Fluxbox window manager. And this particular laptop is 700 megahertz Pentium 3. It has 192 megs of RAM, which is way more than enough to run the Fluxbox environment. Now, when this laptop came out, it could have run Windows XP, but Windows XP has grown. The applications on XP have grown quite a bit since then, and I wouldn't recommend trying to run even Windows XP on this laptop. And definitely it's far below the specs for Windows Vista. But you can still run a fully modern operating system on it, which is Linux, with a variety of desktops. Now this has quite a different appearance from KDE or GNOME, which we've shown many times on the show before. Let me just point out a few things. In the upper left-hand corner here, we have a little status display running. It's showing me that what version of Linux we're running, my uptime along the computer has been running, the date, that my CPU is 5% busy. It's showing me I'm using 66 megabytes of RAM of the 182 that are available. I'm not using any of my swap space yet. I'm running 72 processes, and it's telling me how much space is left on my system disk.
Now, you're running 72 applications on this machine.
Processes.
Well, they're still applications.
In only 66 megabytes.
In only 66 megabytes.
Right, and that includes I'm running the browser and a picture viewing application.
Yeah. You know, that's, you know, with Linux, the applications are much smaller than Windows, you know.
Some of the features of this desktop that we're looking at, I'm not sure if you can see at home at the top of the screen, there are 4 workspaces that I can go through. They're called Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. And on the Alpha workspace, I have 3 applications. Here, let me bring up a couple of them. Here's my diagram that I was showing earlier. Here's the web browser. I believe I have a Xterminal running as well. And if I switch to another desktop, they're not there because they're over here back on Workspace Alpha. So I have like 4 different desktops that I can work on. And that's even adjustable. I can get more or fewer if I wish.
And, you know, Windows has nothing considered a desktop except for the main one. That's it. You can't really switch it. And with Linux, it's standard to switch it.
Right.
You know,
right. It's standard to have multiple desktops.
Yeah.
So if you need another one, you can just click on it and there you go. Okay, what else yes, I can switch through the applications. I'm going to just minimize some of these so I can show more of the desktop here. And instead of having a menu that pops up from the bottom like Windows or KDE, or from the top like in Macintosh or GNOME, this particular window manager implements clicking on the desktop for it to get a menu. So I'm going to right-click on the desktop, and there are my choices for I can start up a terminal, I can start up a web browser, I can start up a file manager. Let me just start up a file manager. There's one. There's more Office applications, network control and applications, a few games, and things for customizing the user interface, for customizing Fluxbox, screen resolutions, logging out, etc., rebooting. So rather, the person who designed this desktop thought, why waste space with a menu at the bottom? Just if somebody wants something, just right-click on the desktop and we'll give them a menu.
Okay. I'd like to show them something.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll switch over to Shaun's computer.
Okay, now this is my I need to show my desktop on the computer. I want to show the desktop on my computer. There.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you see how it looks like this. There's icons up here. The menus are up here. Down here, so anyway, this is the one I'm going to show you. Now I'm going to log off. I'm going to log out. Okay, now I'm back up. Now I'm going to come here, select a session, and I'm going to use XFCE. So I'm going to change a session. So I'm going to do now, what you're going to see is that same desktop under a different window manager. And there it is. So right here is all I need to do is there's my menus. And this is the one that's 15 meg.
So that's pretty small.
That's small for the
KD,
yeah. And yours is the even smaller one.
Mm-hmm.
And what we'll do is see how the menus look over here. Now we're going to switch to Jesse's. Oops.
Yep, that's right.
That's it. And look how his menus are not quite as fancy as XF.
Mm-hmm. Now, the contents of the menus are up to the distribution packaging
Or
person,
the user.
Right? So those of us who like to have everything done for us, such as myself, look for a nice set of applications integrated with the desktop environment, in this case with the window manager. So there's quite a long list here under the Fluxbox window manager. But one of the choices of that you can do is with this particular implementation is they've made it so you can do the switch kind of like Shaun just did, just by choosing another one of the window managers. So let me put up applications again, because it's kind of cool when it happens. So I have a couple applications. I have a file manager there. I have an X terminal running in the middle, and this picture. I'm going to go under Window Managers, and I'm going to change to a different window manager, IceWM. Away goes Fluxbox, and suddenly here at the bottom of my screen, I have a menu bar. I have switched window managers without even shutting down my applications. This is so cool.
Yes.
So as we see now, the menus look a lot different. In fact, there's a different number and different variety of applications loaded. Now if I start up a file manager, let's see if I can find that. Toolbar, system, export, applications, programs. There we go, programs. I'm just getting used to this myself here. Applications, file management. I'll start up a different file manager. So this one looks a lot more like what I'm used to. And also up here on the screen is the one that came as the default on the other window manager. So I have two different file managers running. I happen to not like this one, so I'll get rid of that and keep this one. Looks more natural to me. Now, other things that window managers are in charge of doing are, well, basically, they're in charge of managing all the windows on your desktop. And that's basically any rectangular area, although I don't suppose there's a real reason why it has to be rectangular. It's just more convenient.
In fact, with this new compiz that I'm using, things don't have to be rectangular.
That's right.
Because it uses OpenGL, which is a 3D graphics, or a 2 or 3D graphics package, to draw and render everything.
So there's a potential that, as you were showing us, that the window isn't square anymore.
Right, and it doesn't really need to be.
Okay, so among the features of that it has to control, let's just look here. Are we on? Yep, I'm on. Okay, we see in the upper right, on the top of the window, there's this bar where you can grab the window. This is all stuff familiar to us. To move the window, there's the minimize, maximize, and close. And also this menu, which is way over here on the left, which is actual operations that you want to do on every window. It's not an application menu. It's the menu that you want to do on windows, like restore their size, move them, resize them, minimize, maximize, full screen, roll them up. Let's just do the roll up. That's what it looks rolled up. Double click happens to maximize, although that's adjustable as well. Restore it to its settings. You can move it to a different window, different workspace, lower it below other windows. Here I'll lower it and see what comes up. The picture is now in front of it. So these are all activities that a window manager needs to be able to do. I did want to point out that I can also right-click here to get the windows, and like I say, there are different applications and not as many of them. It's not as fully implemented. And my guess is the person who packaged this particular distribution, which is called Antics, really liked the Fluxbox window manager better. So that's where he spent most of his time in customization time, and less so on the ICE window manager, which is my favorite. But the tools are there. You can look up how to add applications to it yourself to get your own favorite applications.
And that's the interesting thing is, what I like about it is there's one operating system that gives you a great big huge long list of all your programs and applications, and it adds it into this menu, and it becomes so big that you need to scroll up and down it, and go over to the next line to try to find things. I mean, it's just a terrible user interface, in my opinion, for the menuing system. While with the Linux menuing system, they all have the applications broken down into the application types, and then, like all the games are together with the games. That's the neat thing about it and the reason why they do that is it's called the standard Linux base. And it's a way in which all the distributions can sort of look like each other in a standard way.
Okay, that makes it easier for users to learn.
And to be able to port applications from one distribution to another.
Right, because they know what resources they're likely to have available.
And where they are and things like that.
Okay. There's one more trick I want to do. Oh gosh, I can't do it from here. Let me just log out of this. I'm going to log out of the ICE window manager. I'm going to log back in again under the Fluxbox. So let me select Session Fluxbox there. Log back in. Because the packager implemented it from this window manager rather than the other one. I'm going to do a right click, and I added my own window manager into the windowing system. It came with Fluxbox and ICE window manager. I added Enlightenment. I downloaded the packages from using Synaptic, and looked at how they defined ICE Window Manager, and I just added Enlightenment in the same way. And so what this is going to do is kill Fluxbox and bring up Enlightenment. And this is yet another different look. The first thing I notice is that if I don't move my pointer, a menu just pops up on my screen offering me things to do. It shows me what I can do with a left mouse button, with a center mouse button, and with a right mouse button. And one of the choices, since on my laptop I don't have a center button, I can bring up the Enlightenment menu with a Control left button. So I'm going to hold down my Control key, click the left button, and there's the Enlightenment menu. Now, of course, people at home would have a 3-button mouse, so they wouldn't have to do the Control left click. But it just shows that it's yet another idea of someone's idea of what a productive and helpful desktop environment would look like.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be the same idea that everyone else has.
Right. And that's the thing with Linux, is that it gives you a choice of choosing what you want or creating what you want.
Right.
Now, some people may say, oh, it's too much. Well, you don't have to. That's the thing. You
right.
don't have to. You don't have to.
Right. You can just download a simple distribution, leave it on your computer for a long time, and not mess with it. But on our show, we like to do different things.
New toys.
So the Enlightenment Window Manager is just quite a bit different. It has a lot more glitz, not all of which we'll be showing you tonight. Some of the things I can do are, on the lower left-hand side, it's showing me that I have 2 different workspaces, right? Nothing on that one, and on this one is where I'm working. If I start up an application, for example, there's all my window manager type settings there. Here's an application list. I can start up a browser. Let me just do that to get something on the screen. And when I minimize it, I can still see, it's down here on the lower right-hand side. I see that Iceweasel is down there, a little icon showing what was last on the desktop. And over here, I can see a snapshot of the current desktop. Very faintly, I can see that there's the Conky, the System Performance Monitor is still running. Let me just bring that back. And there's some little flashes and twinkles going on as I open Windows. Let me just shrink that down a little bit. It's sliding off to the side. I can slide to the other desk spaces just by pushing my cursor past one of them. It goes into the next one. I'm going to slide my cursor to the right. I know this is hard to see at home. And the other desktop just slides in as if it was right next to this one. So it gives kind of a spatial orientation to all the desktops that you can have.
Enlightenment is a very good desktop window manager. It's very, very touchy-feely, but it doesn't really take that much space. It's very efficient when it does things.
A lot of us, they call it eye candy, and just a small amount of computer memory. And I don't have all of the features implemented that one might want in an Enlightenment, because I just started working on it this afternoon. But that's just another example of, with different distributions, different amounts of work are put into making it usable. And there's a distribution called eLive, E-L-I-V-E, which is a Linux Live CD that runs the Enlightenment Window Manager and is much flashier and fancier than what I can show you tonight, but we'll show you in a future show.
So what we've got here is we tried to talk to you about window managers, about the visual aspect of Linux. It's just, in the past people said, oh, Linux, you've got to use a command line. But no, it's not like that anymore. It is basically very easy to use. I think it's ready for grandma, don't you?
That's right, particularly with the GOS, because we'll just get her running Firefox, get her connected to Google, and she can do everything on the web.
Yep.
Even chat.
So what do you, let's about Google Apps, what do you think about the privacy issue of having all your data stored elsewhere?
Well, Shaun, that's actually a legitimate concern. As we've seen, some companies, I believe Google was one of them, or was it Yahoo, has been in the news a lot lately because they complied with the laws of the country that they were operating in.
Use Yahoo.
Yahoo, and it happened to be China. And China's laws are even more invasive than those in America. Is that your phone, Shaun?
Yes. Hello. Oh, hi, Bill. How you doing? Yeah. Oh, we've got today was a great show. We're talking about desktops and things like window managers. Oh. A window manager is what controls the applications and stuff. Okay. So yeah, and we're able to do a whole bunch of other cool things. On mine, I've got an old computer, and we're doing. It looks pretty much like the Macintosh. Yeah. So, well, no, it doesn't take 128 meg graphics card. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't take 2 gig of RAM. It doesn't take. Well, that's true. It does make people want to buy new hardware. Okay. Well, that sounds good. Yeah, you should take a look at some of the new things that Linux can do. Might improve Windows a little bit. So now you're really in the catch-up position. Okay. Okay. We'll see you later. Bye, Bill. That was my friend Bill. And I think he really is, how can I put this? He's upset that Linux is so advanced compared to Windows. But, oh well. So, anyway, that's what we're doing. And back to yes, it was Yahoo who turned in a journalist to the Chinese government. That journalist is now behind bars for 8 years.
In a Chinese prison.
In a Chinese prison.
So, there is some danger in turning over your personal information, your personal documents, to a company of any size,
right.
Particularly to a multinational company. There are some reasons why you might want to keep your documents on your own computer. Then again, if they're on your own computer, you run the risk of losing them either in a fire or having your laptop stolen, for example. So maybe you are better off having your documents stored somewhere else.
What I think, like I run my own mail server, because I don't want, to me, mail is probably my most important internet activity. I do a lot of it. And it's probably the most, it's what I want to keep the most secure, because I think it is like sending it mail. When I write a letter, I put it in the mailbox. I know that people look at that, but they don't recognize anything. They don't take pictures of it and keep it around for 10 years. They just say, okay, they just sort it to the correct bin. I worked for the post office for a while. So what happens is that they don't keep records of what mail has been sent. So for me, I think the same rules should apply for email. I don't believe email is any different than mail.
Or shouldn't be.
Or shouldn't be. And that's my big thing is, I believe that email and mail should have the same protection under the law. And just because they can harvest all email information, and what we're talking about is just the headers, they shouldn't, because they can't do it with regular mail. Just because it's technically feasible doesn't mean it's legally feasible or it's legally correct.
Sometimes legislators or people in the judiciary don't really understand technology very well. And so it's good if each of us can help educate them on the technological and
Right.
also the privacy issues and our expectations of how the government is supposed to treat us.
Yes. You know, for me, what do you think the founding fathers would have put something in the Constitution if they knew every mail that was written and mailed could be recorded?
In fact, there is an expectation of privacy in the Constitution, and the Supreme Court has found that to be true in the past. So this is disturbing that seems to be this trend away from that.
Well, I think it's just this administration. So anyway, I want to thank the crew for working today. Hi, crew. We've got our regulars, Chris, Mark, and Dennis. And they all raise their hand at the same time. Mark likes to go by many different names. I want to thank you for watching. I think this was a really good show, and it sort of showed you what was able to do, what you're able to see under Linux. You know, it's not just typing anymore. It's a user interface, a windowing user interface, but it's many different types of windowing user interfaces.
So we showed you just some of the innovation that is happening in the non-Windows world, and we also demonstrated that it can run on practically any old computer that you have. So no need to upgrade to Windows Vista or to buy a new machine.
So, and with that, off to the races.